please don't embarrass me tonight. My sister Vanessa said it while fixing the diamond ring on her finger, like humiliating me was just another normal part of her evening routine. The ballroom around us glowed with gold lights and giant chandeliers. Wealthy guests laughed loudly, while waiters carried champagne across the room. Everything about the engagement party screamed money, and Vanessa loved every second of it. I'm serious, Daniel, she continued quietly. Ethan works with real businessmen, investors, CEOs, important people. I adjusted my black suit calmly. I'll try to survive the pressure. She rolled her eyes. See? That weird sarcasm. Just don't do it tonight. Before I could answer, our mother walked over holding a champagne glass. Oh, good. Mom sighed. You already talked to him. Talked to me. Like I was some public relations problem. Dad joined us seconds later. Daniel, at least you dressed properly this time. Thank you, I think. Vanessa laughed softly. He still looks like someone who fixes printers in a basement. A few nearby guests laughed too. I stayed quiet. That had become my role in the family years ago. Vanessa was the successful one, the glamorous one, the future millionaire wife. And me, the quiet older brother nobody took seriously because I avoided attention and never explained what I actually did for work. According to them, I handled warehouse logistics. Technically true, just not the full truth. Across the ballroom, giant screens displayed photos of Vanessa and Ethan on yachts, beaches, and private jets. Every picture looked carefully designed to impress strangers. Vanessa followed, my eyes proudly. Beautiful, right? It's expensive, I replied. Dad smirked. That's what success looks like. I almost smiled. Funny thing about real success. It usually doesn't need this much decoration. Suddenly, the room shifted near the entrance. Guests turned their heads instantly. Vanessa's face lit up. He's here. Ethan Mercer entered the ballroom wearing a charcoal suit and the kind of calm confidence most people fake unsuccessfully. Conversations lowered around him naturally as investors and executives moved to greet him. Vanessa practically ran toward him. Baby! She kissed him dramatically while photographers snapped pictures. Then she proudly brought him toward our family. Ethan, she smiled. Meet my brother Daniel. Ethan looked at me and immediately froze, not visibly enough for others to notice. But I noticed recognition, sharp and immediate. Interesting. Vanessa kept talking, completely unaware. Daniel works in shipping or warehouses or something. She laughed. Honestly, nobody really knows. Several people chuckled. Mom joined in. He's very secretive about his little business projects. Dad smiled proudly at Ethan. Unlike you, Vanessa says your company is expanding internationally. It is, Ethan answered slowly. Vanessa wrapped her arm around him. My fiancé is a real businessman. More laughter, but Ethan wasn't laughing, because unlike everyone else in that room, he knew exactly who I was. 3 months ago, his company signed a $1 billion distribution partnership with mine. I hadn't attended publicly. My executives handled most appearances now. Less attention, less noise. But Ethan had met me once during a private meeting in Singapore. Apparently, he remembered. Vanessa noticed his silence. Why are you staring at him like that? Ethan answered carefully. I think your brother and I may have worked together before. Dad laughed immediately. Daniel, with you. Wrong answer. I watched Ethan realize the entire family dynamic in seconds. The jokes, the disrespect, the assumptions, and suddenly the man looked uncomfortable. Vanessa still didn't understand. Oh, trust me, she smirked. Daniel isn't exactly in your league. Silence. Heavy silence. One of Ethan's business partners beside him suddenly looked at me twice. He recognized me too. That made things worse. Now 2 executives were standing there pretending not to expose the truth, while my family continued mocking me in public. Honestly, it was almost impressive. Vanessa raised her champagne glass proudly. My fiancé is a real businessman, she repeated. Then Ethan finally spoke. Quietly, respectfully, directly at me. Sir, I didn't know Vanessa was your sister. The room froze. Every smile disappeared instantly. Vanessa blinked. Sir. Mom frowned. Dad slowly lowered his drink. Ethan's partner looked confused. Wait, she seriously doesn't know? Vanessa looked between all of us nervously. Know what? Nobody answered. I could almost hear the atmosphere collapsing around them. Not loudly, silently. The worst kind of realization. Vanessa stepped closer to Ethan. Why are you calling him sir? I picked up my coat calmly. No anger, no revenge, no dramatic speech. Because powerful people don't need emotional moments to prove a point. I looked at Ethan once. You don't have to explain anything. The relief on his face was immediate. Then I turned toward Vanessa. For the first time all night, she looked uncertain, small, afraid. But I felt nothing except clarity. People reveal themselves completely when they think you have no value. Congratulations on the engagement, I said quietly. Then I walked toward the exit. Behind me, nobody laughed this time. For 3 days after the engagement party, nobody from my family called me. Not Vanessa, not Mom, not Dad. Silence. The same silence they had mocked me for my entire life suddenly became uncomfortable when they didn't understand it anymore. Meanwhile, I returned to work. Singapore expansion, Dubai acquisition, 2 investor meetings, 1 shipping contract worth more than the entire cost of Vanessa's engagement party. Life moved quickly when emotions weren't driving it. On Friday morning, my assistant walked into my office carefully. Mr. Mercer's office called again. I signed another document without looking up, and he wants to apologize personally. I almost smiled. Interesting. Not because Ethan had disrespected me, but because he understood exactly what kind of mistake he was marrying into. Tell him it's unnecessary. I replied calmly outside the glass windows of my office. Hundreds of employees moved through the headquarters below. Logistics screens tracked shipments across continents in real time. The warehouse business had grown larger than most people could imagine. But success becomes peaceful once you stop needing people to witness it. That evening, my phone finally rang. Vanessa. I let it ring twice before answering. Why didn't you tell us? She asked immediately. Not, how are you? Not, we're sorry. Just confusion. I leaned back in my chair. You never asked. Silence. Then she lowered her voice. Ethan says your company owns part of his expansion deal. Another long pause. You're seriously a CEO? The disbelief in her voice almost made me laugh. People really do create entire versions of you inside their heads. And once they decide who you are, facts become inconvenient. Mom called an hour later. Suddenly, she sounded softer than usual. Careful. Daniel, she said gently, your father, and I think maybe there's been a misunderstanding in the family. A misunderstanding. Interesting word for years of disrespect. But I stayed calm, because anger only gives people an easier version of the story. Over the next week, things became stranger. Dad started texting me articles about business leadership. Mom suddenly wanted family dinners. Vanessa stopped posting engagement photos online. And Ethan, he delayed the wedding. That part told me everything. They were still trying to understand how the quiet brother they laughed at had become the man powerful people called Sir. But the truth was simple. While they were busy performing success, I was building it. 2 weeks later, Vanessa asked me to meet her at a private restaurant downtown. For the first time in years, she looked nervous instead of confident. No designer attitude, no mocking smile, no performance, just silence. Ethan was already there when I arrived. The moment he saw me, he stood up respectfully. Vanessa noticed immediately. That small action hurt her more than any insult ever could. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "Actually, a lot of them." I sat down calmly. "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do," she replied. "I spent years treating you like you were less than us." I looked at her for a moment, then at Ethan. He understood something my family never did. The loudest people in a room usually have the least control. Vanessa lowered her eyes. "Why didn't you ever tell us who you really were?" "Because that was the problem. People only wanted to respect me after money gave them permission. I shouldn't have needed a title for basic respect." I answered calmly. Silence covered the table instantly. No anger, no revenge, just truth. Dad called me later that night, asking if we could start over as a family. But some doors don't slam shut loudly. They close quietly after years of disappointment. And once peace enters your life, chaos no longer feels like home. Before sleeping that night, I looked at the city lights outside my penthouse window and realized something simple. Silence had protected me, while I built everything they laughed at. They thought I was weak because I stayed quiet. They didn't know I was simply busy becoming powerful. Fire if you enjoy powerful silent comeback stories like this. Subscribe to Justice Tales Junction, where respect is earned, betrayal is exposed, and quiet people become unforgettable. High Voltage Justice Tales Junction, the home of emotional revenge, calm authority, and stories that hit harder than loud drama. A month later, Ethan officially canceled the wedding. Not because of me, because once someone sees how a person treats those they believe are beneath them, they start imagining their own future. Vanessa tried calling me 3 times that week. I answered on the 4th. "I didn't lose him because of your money," she said quietly. "Did I?" "No," I replied calmly. "You lost him because respect isn't something people can fake forever." She started crying softly. Years ago, I probably would have rushed to comfort her. But wisdom teaches you something painful. Saving people from consequences usually delays their growth. "I really thought you looked down on everyone," she admitted. I looked out across the city lights from my office window. "No," I said. "I just stopped begging people to see my value." Silence. Then she whispered something I never expected to hear from her. "I was jealous of you." That surprised me. "You never needed attention," she continued. "You always looked calm, certain, like you didn't care what people thought." I spent my whole life trying to impress everyone. For the first time, I finally understood her. Some people become loud because deep down they're terrified of feeling invisible, and others become quiet because they learn their peace matters more than applause. A few weeks later, Mom invited me to dinner again. This time, there were no jokes about warehouses, no comments about my clothes, no fake advice about success. Just respect. Late, awkward, but real. And honestly, that was enough. Because revenge was never the goal. Peace was. People think power is proving others wrong. It isn't. Real power is reaching a point where their opinion no longer controls your happiness. They laughed at the quiet brother for years. Then one sentence changed everything. "Sir, I didn't know Vanessa was your sister." And from that moment on, nobody in the room ever looked at me the same way again. 6 months later, I saw Vanessa again at Dad's birthday dinner. The difference was impossible to ignore. She was quieter now, not weak, not broken, just humbled. Life had removed the performance from her voice. When I arrived at the restaurant, everyone stood up naturally to greet me. Dad shook my hand with unusual respect. Mom smiled nervously before asking if I'd been eating properly during my recent Europe trip. Small things. But small things reveal everything. Vanessa watched silently from across the table. Years ago, she would have controlled the entire room with jokes, stories, and attention. Tonight, she barely touched her drink. At one point, Dad started talking proudly about my company's newest expansion project. The same man who once reduced my career to boxes and trucks. Funny how quickly people update their opinions once the world confirms your value. But I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is heavy, and peace travels light. Halfway through dinner, Vanessa suddenly looked at me. "You know what hurts the most?" she asked quietly. Nobody spoke. She smiled sadly. "You never once tried to embarrass me back." Because I never needed to. Life already had. I leaned back calmly. Humiliating people doesn't heal anything. Her eyes lowered instantly. Then Mom asked the question everyone had secretly wondered for months. "Daniel, were you really hurt by the things we said?" I looked around the table carefully. The answer was yes. But pain changes shape when you survive it long enough. It taught me who valued noise more than character. I said calmly. Silence covered the table again. Not uncomfortable silence. Reflective silence. The kind that forces people to meet themselves honestly. When dinner ended, Vanessa stopped me near the exit. "I'm trying to become a better person," she said softly. I nodded once. Then stop chasing impressive people and start respecting good ones. For a second, her eyes filled with tears. Then she hugged me. A real hug this time. Not for attention, not for appearance, just human. As I walked toward my car, my phone buzzed with another business notification worth millions. But strangely, that wasn't the moment that stayed with me. What stayed with me was realizing something simple. The greatest victory in life is not making people fear your success. It's making them regret underestimating your silence. Part 6, Final Ending. A year later, I received an invitation from Vanessa, not to a wedding, to a small charity event she had started for young women trying to build businesses without wealthy connections. No luxury ballroom, no photographers, no performance, just honesty. I almost didn't go, but something told me people deserve one chance to grow after life finally teaches them what ego never could. When I arrived, Vanessa smiled nervously. Then she handed me the microphone unexpectedly. "I want everyone here to meet the person I misunderstood the most," she said quietly. "My brother." The room applauded softly. I looked at her for a moment and realized she had finally changed. Not because she lost Ethan, not because she lost status, because for the first time in her life, she stopped measuring human value through money and appearances. I took the microphone calmly. "When people are building something real," I said, "they usually become quieter, not louder." The room fell silent. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet won't feel the need to prove anything to you. I handed the microphone back and stepped away. No dramatic speech, no revenge, no humiliation, just peace. As I walked out of the building, Vanessa called my name one last time. "Daniel." I turned. She smiled softly. "Thank you for never becoming cruel." I looked at her for a few seconds before answering. Pain changes people. Wisdom changes them better. Then I walked into the cold night air, feeling lighter than I had in years. Because in the end, silence had given me everything noise never could. Clarity, respect, and a life no longer controlled by other people's opinions.